sitting on a log, single-shot rifle and a one-eyed dog. Yonder come the kinfolk in the moonlight, Louisiana Saturday night. Well, you get down the middle and you get down the bow, take off your shoes and you throw it on the floor, dance in the kitchen till the morning light, Louisiana Saturday night. My brother Bill and my other brother Jack, belly full of beer and a possum in the sack. 15 kids in the front porch fly, Louisiana Saturday night. When the kinfolk leave and the kids get fed, me and Mama gonna slip off to bed. Have a little fun when we turn out the light, Louisiana Saturday night. Well, you get down the middle and you get down the bow, kick off your shoes and you run them on the floor, dance to the kitchen till the morning light, Louisiana Saturday night. Louisiana Saturday night. Guess we didn't practice that. I like that song. Yeah, it's I gotta figure out how to give it that. This is right here. And if you were turning, you would milk the cows first, and then you take this machine here, or if you just had one cow, you'd have a smaller turn. But if you had like a dozen cows, you had quite a bit, and you wanted to turn a lot of, separate the cream from the skim milk, and then you can put it in here and then turn it.
Do you put that cream
Guys,
here and
let's
the
listen to
milk?
what he's saying.
Okay, this would be the cream,
The thick stuff.
the thick stuff, okay? Or if you just had one cow, let's say that you just had one cow.
What does this
See those jars over there?
This is jars.
See those big jars? Now that is, what's in there is milk straight from the cow. But sometimes I have some cream left over, and I just put it in. I just put it in one of those jars like that, and put it about 3/4 full, 3/4 full. Have some whey in there, and then I may let it sit in my refrigerator until Saturday till the ball game comes on. And I'll sit down there, set it out in the sunshine like this to get up daytime temperature, and then start churning it by halftime.
I know what
I got it on. What is it?
it's a little here. Is this the
Butter churn. Yeah.
you said
What
we
you
put
do,
cream in
you put
it.
a pan down here. Let's say that you milk the cows. I grew up on a farm down here on Percy Creek Lake. I don't know, where are you guys from? Are you from this area?
I know.
Because that was her
Where you guys from?
Houses.
Huh?
Houses.
Yeah.
houses.
Houses?
They all live in Smyrna.
Oh, they live in Smyrna.
Can
I
I
grew
Smyrna
up on the
area.
farm down here, and we would milk cows.
I
And,
think that gives
and
water everywhere. Can I
sometimes
try
we would
feeding
sell
away?
it in cans like this with a number on it.
Oh,
But
God,
sometimes
what
we
is
sell the
this?
cream. But this is a pad goes in there like that,
You see?
and when you pour the milk in, and it filters out anything that might be in it, and then you can sell the milk.
Water in case we
Nice.
But how long does it take to make the milk?
Uh,
spend water in case
like most cows start slowly and end slowly.
Okay.
Okay. You have to milk. Most people milk the cows. I went on this right here. Back in the 20s and 30s, there used to be about 200 dairies here, and most of them were called Jersey. But now there's only about 5. So I have to go all the way up to Guy James Farm, which is connected to the university in Murfreesboro, and that's where they have the cows that they milk. They milk them twice a day.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
And I have to make the trip up there rather than right down the road. I have to go up there.
Yes,
It takes
sir.
me a while to get up there.
Gotcha. Oh, gotcha.
But we always had 15 to 20 to 30 cows. I mean, all the time, and we milked them in either depending on if you had hogs or not.
Right.
If you had a lot of hogs, you might want to sell the cream, separate the cream, sell it, and then keep the skim milk and let it sit in a barrel for a couple 3 days, and it starts to separate, and you got the whey and cottage cheese comes to the top, and then you mix a grain product to feed the
Right.
hogs and chickens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's interesting. What is that the kids playing with?
Now that right there is a little device that was patented back in 1903,
And if one thing, there may have been other reasons. If your grandmother said, "We don't have any cream for my coffee," run down and milk the cow. You run out and take the milk straight from the cow, fill these up, and then turn this. Start slowly, turn it this way. Turn it this way, and keep on turning. And you turn it a little faster and a little faster till it stands out. Keep on turning faster, 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 faster. And after about 2 minutes, the cream will be on the top, and you use the cream to put in your coffee.
That's interesting.
I don't want to spit it anymore.
Now, what this does, why does it do that? Skim milk is heavier than the cream, and so the cream will come to the top because it's lighter. Okay, it's the same principle as if you had this bucket, this bucket right here, and you take some.
Daddy!
Now that little device over there, plus that one right there, they work off the same principle as this right here does. For example, if you had this water in the bucket and you were standing like this, and you throw it over your head like this, the water doesn't spill, right?
Right.
Okay, what's happening is the heavy parts are going to, it's called centrifugal force, or centrifuge. And so that little thing there, it throws the heavy part to the outside, and so does this machine right here. And so even at the university, I saw one day they had a machine where they take the cream and they sell cream there in the store, and they sell their own skim milk. And they had a big device, a bigger device, of course, which they'd use a lot of milk rather than just a couple of cans of like this.
Gotcha.
Can I just me and Kamaya try that out?
Huh? You want to try this out like this?
Is it a butter?
This is a butter churn, and you can practice on that one.
Ooh.
See? That's what it feels like.
Oh.
Now the other guys are going down there, and they went down. They're going to get the butter churn. So if y'all come back a little later, hopefully we'll have some butter.
Daddy did that when he was growing up.
Okay.
You want to tell me about it, or?
Oh, well, primarily what we're doing here is teaching the children about how the meat was cured back in the 1860s. And the interesting thing is the same process is still used today. We got people that cure meat in the very same way. In fact, your larger producers do it the same way. We use the soft cured. That's what they did. They cured it with salt. They covered the processed meat. Once they killed hogs, they would take the meat. They would cure it. They'd take salt and totally cover it. The reason you covered it with the salt, it removed all the moisture. You remove the moisture, bacteria can't grow. And that's how come it keeps under cured process. Once that's done, the meat is then hung in the smokehouse. A small fire is built inside there. Once the fire is built, it smokes the hams. You don't cook it, it just smokes it. That way it keeps out insects and things of that type. Stays in there for about 60 days or so. After that time, it's ready to start being consumed. They usually processed enough that would take care of the family till the next time they had to process hogs. You got to remember, they didn't do this in warm times like this because the meat would go bad. They only did it like in November, December or so because it was cold. And that way the meat, once they killed the hogs, it could cool down where they could take the process. So that was their refrigerator, that was their pantry, that's what they used to keep all of those type of things. That was, hogs was the reason they used hogs was due to the fact it took the cure. Beef does not do this. Beef, if you try to do beef this way, it turns into what's called jerky. And you just didn't see people sitting around a dining room table eating jerky.
Right.
They did it this way. So they still ate a lot of fresh meat, chicken, turkey, deer, things of this type. But they primarily worked this way. It's something they wasn't going to consume real fast or whatever. Ham was carried on a lot of traveling trips because they could take a whole ham, boil it, send it out. It would stay good for about 2 to 3 weeks carrying it. They'd send along some cornbread, cut you off a slice of ham, a little cornbread, and you're still going.
Normally, how much salt do they normally use?
How much what?
Salt do they normally
The salt?
use?
They would totally cover it. I mean, you didn't see the meat. It would go down. They had what's called a soft trough in there that would totally cover the meat, and it would stay in there. And they could look at the meat to see what they called take the cure. And when you're talking about the cure, it had taken all the salt that it could. And what that does, it replaces the moisture with salt.
And that's why everybody says, well, that's awfully salty meat once they got it. Well, you got to understand, a lot of this meat, once they brought it back and start to eat it, they would boil it, which would boil a lot of that salt back out of it.
Right.
So they used a lot of salt. Now people say, well, where did they get the salt? Well, a lot of salt was sold, but they also, at that time, there were still a lot of salt licks around here.
Right.
That they accumulated some of their salt, plus a lot of it come from the ocean. There was a lot of what they called the salt kettles. A lot of the old plantations, if you'll look, they had salt kettles. The only thing, after the war, the majority of them were broken. The Union Army, when he come through here, they destroyed the salt kettles because that was a source of people getting food. They knew that's how they cured their food. They knew that salt was used for everything. So when they come through, they cracked every one of those salt kettles where they wouldn't work anymore.
Man, that's bad.
The main purpose during the Civil War was to starve the Southern people out where the war would end, and it pretty much worked.
Yeah. Man, that's bad. Really bad. How many times a year do they normally do that?
Usually just once a year.
Once a year.
It's usually during those colder months, and it's usually around November, December. People don't understand around here anymore. It used to in November get pretty cold. December used to be fairly cold. But those times of the year, Mr. Davis on this farm right here had somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 hogs every year. And he processed a lot of meat. Now, we have the one smokehouse that is still left from the Davis family that's located right here outside the home. But there were more smokehouses than that. But he also sold a lot of the hogs to area farmers.
Gotcha.
And the interesting thing, he raised them just right back here behind me on Stewart's Creek. And I have to explain to people there was no EPA back then to stop him from raising those hogs down there on that, because at that time they were just looking at the process. Hey, I put my hogs down here on this flat rock and it's all gone, whatever, and it washes on down the creek. We hadn't gotten to that point of wondering about where he was. You know, that was just an old rule. You don't drink downstream from the herd. You know, that's just what you know.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
it.
On plantations and on southern farms like this, kitchens are always separate from the main house. The reason being they cooked on open fires. It's always warm and hot, and they didn't want to heat up the main house. And the kitchens often caught on fire. But they always had to bring the food from the kitchen to the main house. And to do that, they usually had to walk through a passel of dogs. And those dogs would get in their way and trip them up. Well, to keep them out of the way, they would take a little bit of cornbread mixing, roll it into a ball, and throw it out. And they'd say, this is to quieten the dogs. And to do that, they throw it out there. The dogs would stand out here and eat the cornbread. They carry the food into the kitchen through that door. Well, then someone said, well, let's just drop it in some grease. And they dropped it in the grease and they throw it out there, and the dogs would then go eat that. Well, somebody at some time took a bite of one and said, hey, that's pretty good. So, but every time they would get ready to go from the kitchen to the main house, they'd say, quieten the dogs. Well, then it became short and said, hush puppies. And that's where the term hush puppy comes from, is from the southern kitchens, quieting the dogs. So when you go to Captain D's or anywhere else and get your hush puppies, you're eating dog food when it comes down to it. But that was the process where some of these terminologies come from.
Awesome.
To cut wood, cut down trees. You know what? They would actually use this to tan hides too. And how interesting is that? What do you think they would use it for to tan hides?
For food or
For hides.
to skin them.
Hides. To skin them. They might use to skin them, but actually I think they use a knife like this for skinning. Believe it or not, you have to make this leather so that it doesn't rot. If you just leave it like it is, it'll rot and stink. Anybody ever smelled a dead animal before? Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? It's like a skunk, only worse. Yes. Well, buffalo, they would use the hide on buffalo. Buffalo is actually what they would use their hatchets and axes to skin the hide for. Would you believe in order to tan those hides, they would use the brain matter of the animal? It's called brain tanning. And what do buffalo do when they're fighting? They use their horns. What do they hit together? Their head. You think their heads are very hard? Yes. Guess what? An axe can break that bone. They'd have to chop it through the bone to get to the brain. So that's why they had the axis. Another reason they had the axis. Hold on. Okay, let's see. That. Okay. This one? Excellent question. What do you think I have in here? What does this look like?
Gunpowder.
Gunpowder. It's a powder horn. Why do you think I keep powder in a horn? Well, it's for my gun. Right here. You could use it to flash a fire.
Dynamite.
Why do I keep the gunpowder in the horn? What happens if it rains? It stays safe. That's right. It's going to stay dry. That's why I keep it in the horn. So, all right, let's everybody move back around this way. I need this side over here. Y'all can come over this way. Squeeze in over this way.
Luke, come over this way, baby.
I like that question. Hold on. That's a question. All right. So, y'all can come back so you can hear me. Don't have to get away. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise. No, this is actually what they call a Kentucky rifle. Or it's very similar to a Kentucky rifle. This is called a flintlock rifle. I heard a lot of people say shotgun. It's not a shotgun. This is a flintlock rifle. The difference between this gun and the guns they're using over there that they use in the Civil War is all right here. What do y'all see right here? What does that look like?
The trick.
Flint and steel, that's absolutely right. This works the same way it does, that's what's going to start that fire. Have you ever heard of cocked and locked?
Yeah.
It comes from the flintlock. You ever heard of going off half-cocked? Yeah. It comes from the flintlock. It's amazing how this stuff sticks around. That flash in a pan, you've heard of flash in a pan. Same thing, it comes from the flintlock. Absolutely, forgot about that one, thank you. So, when you load a gun today, what do? Real simple. Back here in the back.
First, you clean it with the microphone.
When you load a gun today that you use today.
Oh, they just buy for the bullets in
That's right. Absolutely right. You just put a cartridge in it, and then you pull the trigger, and it's ready. You load it, pull the trigger, it's ready to go. This is not that simple, but it has all the same components. In your cartridge that you call a bullet, that we nowadays call a bullet, it actually has a primer, powder, and a bullet. Well, guess what? I had to put all those three things in this separately. So, what do you think goes in first? Bullet. Good guess. But we need something behind the bullet to push the bullet out. Powder. That's absolutely right. So, if I just start taking my powder horn and dumping powder down here and put too much, what's going to happen? It's going to blow up. I heard it back. If I put too little, what's going to happen? It might be a flash of pan, or it might be just go poof, and it won't push the bullet out. So I want the right amount of powder, correct? Absolutely. Y'all see this little thing right here? Check this out. Look, watch. That slides, doesn't it? It's actually got markings on this side so I can tell how much I'm putting in there. And we're going to use a full load because it just sounds cool. And so it will be loud. There'll be lots of smoke. Y'all are fine for right now. This is black powder. How do you think they made black powder? Coal's a good guess. Charcoal. That charcoal's one ingredient. Well, I'm going to give you a guess. They use charcoal, and the other ingredient came from caves. What lives in caves? Bats. That's absolutely right. They would use bat guano. And what is bat guano? Not saliva. Bat poop. That's right. They use bat poop and charcoal. So, if you look at my hand, look at that. See all that? It's actually just black powder. And believe it or not, it's harmless until you put a spark to it. So, I've got a full load here. I'm going to dump it down the barrel. That's right, never look down the barrel.
Yeah.
All right, I've got my powder in there. Is it ready to shoot?
Need a bullet.
Need a bullet. Need to tamp it down first. So I take my ramrod. If I don't tamp it down, it's just going to go poof. Do we want poof? No. Yes, but you can just go poof. So, all right, it's ready to shoot. I tamp my powder down.
Need a bullet.
Need a bullet. All right, very good. All right. I've got a bullet right here. See this little round ball? All right. Could be a musket ball. This one, if I just put this ball in its barrel and then turn my barrel up, what's going to happen to my ball? It's going to roll right out. So what should I do to keep it from doing that? Well, actually, what you called wadding, they call it patches then. It patches. You know what? That's what this knife is for. It's a little patch knife. They would cut off a little piece of fabric for the patch. So you take your ball, you put it in there, you wrap it around there. If I take my ramrod, just try to jam that down in there. Am I going to break my ramrod? Yes. Guess what? I have a short one here. Y'all see that little bitty brass knob? This is called a ball starter. You take that, you push it down till it's even, and you take the other end and you ram it down in there till it's down about right there. And then you take your ramrod, and it's really tight. You have to really ram it down in there, all the way down. All right. Is it ready to shoot?
Yeah.
No. Remember what parts of a cartridge do we have? We have the bullet, we have the powder. What's the last piece? Primer. That's right. We still have to put a primer on this. Guess what? The primer goes down here on our flintlock. When I was doing the flint and steel to start a fire, what was we catching the sparks with? Not grass. Cloth, the char cloth. That's right. We're not going to use char cloth this time. We want something that catches and burns a little quicker. So guess what? We're going to use powder. So y'all see this little bitty groove? We got to fill that groove with powder. Okay? All right. So I happen to have another powder horn here. Has the same powder in it, only it's finer. All right. Got my powder in my pan. Now if I get a flash in my pan, this powder is going to burn, but it's not going to go in the barrel. Hopefully we won't get that. Now, guess what? I am cocked and locked, and it's ready to fire. It's half cocked right now. So, actually I got my safety on. If I pull the trigger right now, it won't go off. They did. You have to pull it back one more time in order to shoot it. And believe it or not, you can actually make this waterproof so that you can carry it around all day and still shoot. So, who's ready to hear me shoot it? Hear us shoot it. All right. This is going to be very loud, and it's going to be a lot of smoke. So I'm going to say firing 3 times, and on the 3rd time I'm going to pull the trigger. Okay? I'm going to cover your ear. I'm going to stand right over here. If the tree's in your way, move back this way a little bit.
My class over here. My class move over.
We're going to let them walk by first.
We can see.
Y'all want to wait right there? Okay. It's going to be loud. I'm going to say firing 3 times and then pull the trigger. Okay, y'all ready? Yeah. Might see some smoke out this way. Ready? Firing, firing, firing. That is how they would shoot. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great day. Come out here to get it. We're not going to touch it today. That way we can keep it nice for other people. This raccoon is probably older than I am because it was donated to me to the park where I work so that we can come out and show it to y'all. This was probably trapped. It is real. This was a real live raccoon one day. It's a real flintlock. So, what's special about the raccoon in the state of Tennessee?
State animal.
State animal, that's right. It's absolutely right. This is our state animal. And this is one of the animals that the long hunters would have come out here to get the hides of. They weren't real interested in meat because that meat wouldn't keep over the winter and stuff to take it back home because they lived in Virginia, North Carolina, and they would come hunt here in Tennessee. They were actually some of the first Europeans in this part of Tennessee. Who's heard of Daniel Boone? Absolutely. He was a long hunter, believe it or not. Excuse me.
You learned that in social studies.
Absolutely. I'm glad they're still teaching it. There's some places not teaching that anymore. So yes, Daniel Boone was a long hunter, and he was one of the more famous ones, but he was not the only one. They would come out here on horseback, and they would set up what they called a station camp somewhere just this side of the mountains. And then from there would usually be about 3 or 4 of them, and then from there they would go out and separate out into individual groups.
How long were they out for to hunt?
I'm glad you asked. So I'm coming to that point. They would, like I said, they would come out and separate out. These guys were mostly farmers back home in Virginia, North Carolina. And what time of year do you grow crops?
Spring,
Spring.
fall,
Fall is when you harvest,
summer.
and summer. Spring, summer, and fall. So after the harvest got in, what was there to do? Nothing. Well, these guys wanted to make money. Most of them were children of the landowner. Usually the second, third, fourth, fifth, on down son, sometimes the 12th son of their parents. And guess what? The oldest son inherited the farm. Who's here the oldest in your family? Congratulations, y'all got the farm. The rest of us got to fend for ourselves. So they would come out here to make money so that they could acquire land and start a family. So one of the ways they did that was by getting hides that they would send back to Europe, which they would take this hair and turn into hats, just like my hat. The difference is my hat's not made out of hair, mine's made out of wool.
Oh yeah, I had a raccoon hat at my house.
Well, yes. Well, was it a felt raccoon hat or a raccoon hide hat?
I have no idea.
Did it look like a raccoon?
Yeah.
Then it's a raccoon hide hat. That's how you know. This is a felt hat.
Well, it had like a circle and then it had the tail.
Yep.
Of it.
Well, if it looks like a raccoon, if it still looks like the hair, it is actually a hide hat. If it looks like this, like felt, it's actually a felt hat. It doesn't look like the animal anymore. And so they would. Who's seen a white-tailed deer? Who knows what a white-tailed deer is? Okay. They were numerous here, very, very numerous, and they would take those and send those back to Europe and turn those into buggy seats. And guess what the best animal there was to make hats out of? Take a step back, please. There we go. Thank you. It's waterproof. It builds dams. It eats trees.
A beaver.
A beaver. That's right. Beaver is the best hide to make a hat out of. Why would it be the best one to make a hat out of?
Why?
No.
Waterproof. That's right. It's waterproof. If my hat, being wool hat, gets rained on or gets wet from sweat or crossing the river, falling in the river, whatever, I'm gonna have to take it back to the hatter and pay him or her to fix it, make it look like this again. Well, guess what? A beaver hat, it can get rained on all day and it stays the same. Very, very, very expensive hat. Even to this day, you can still buy beaver hats and they're still very expensive. So that's what these guys were after. They was after the hides to make money.
How long does it usually take to fletch and stretch the fur?
Yes, they would. They take the flesh and stretch the fur. That's coming from the road back here. That's dust. Yep. So, these guys had to bring everything with them because they were the first Europeans here. There was no Walmart, no Target. There's no CVS or Walgreens on every corner because there were no corners.
Right.
So, what kind of things would you take with you if you had to live on your own for 6 months?
A gun.
A gun. That's a good thing. Water. Good thing is, there was a lot of water out here, and you could still drink the water straight from the river here. But you did have to bring a container to put your water in. And guess what? It's nice and warm, but it's still wet. Yes, sir. What else? Some wool to stay warm. Warm clothes. Very good. Y'all see I got warm clothes on? They would also have something over called a...
Shawl.
Hold on. What's that?
Shawl.
Say it again.
Shawl.
I don't even know what that is.
A shawl.
Oh, a shawl. Yes. It's kind of like shawl, only they called it a... the words left me.
Hey.
Like, it's kind of like an overcoat. You'll probably know what I'm thinking about.
I'm lost.
Anyway, it was basically a jacket. It looked very similar to the shirt that I'm wearing to keep the rain off of and stuff. Their
Poncho.
hat. What kind of? How would you stay warm? It's wintertime. Well, you need food. You can kind of hunt for most of that, but how do you stay warm other than clothes?
Fire.
Fire. That's right. They had to bring fire. So how do you think they made their fires?
Flint. they had to like chop up some wood and then rub them together.
That's a very good guess. But believe it or not, they actually could go one step better than that. But you can do that. I heard something over here.
Flint and steel.
Flint and steel, that's right. You think they would have matches?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. They might have if they had been invented yet. They weren't invented until about 50 or 60 years later. So this is actually my fire kit. Let's take one step back. There we go. Good job. Y'all can come up here a little bit. Y'all are so far away. Y'all can come up here so you can see. This is actually my fire kit, and I do have flint and steel in here because matches hadn't been invented yet. Lighters were long from being invented. So right here. What does this look like right here? Well, yes, but what does flint look like?
Cold.
Well, this one's black. How about this one?
Whoa.
What does this look like? Say it again, I heard it.
Stone.
Stone or a rock. That's exactly what this is. These are two different kinds of flints. And what does this look like? Steel, just a random piece of metal. That's exactly right. Well, this is how they made fire. See that?
Can you do that over there?
I can. It's the same thing here.
How do you make it?
That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. This rock, believe it or not, cuts this piece of steel. And that's what the sparks are, little burning pieces of metal. Isn't that really neat?
Is it burning off the metal?
It is. It's cutting the metal off, and the friction is making it hot. So, are those sparks lasting very long? No, that's right. You have to have something to catch it with. Guess what?
You use wood?
You could use wood, but wood takes so much heat to start burning. What is this?
Mulch.
Looks like mulch.
Rubber? Paper.
Looks like paper.
Leather? Leather?
Not leather. I'll give you a hint. You're wearing some.
Wool.
Clothes. That's right. This is actually cloth. But this cloth has been baked. What happens? Has anybody heard of charcoal? Yeah. Have y'all used that? Seen somebody use that in a grill? It makes really good barbecue, especially hickory.
And ribs.
And ribs, yes. I like what you think. Well, this is char cloth. This is cloth made into charcoal, and when a spark hits it, it burns slowly, but it does burn. And then this little rope I have here, I can untwist it.
And it makes it fire.
Well, actually, I can untwist this and make like a little bird nest to catch my spark in, and I can blow on it, and I've got a fire.
I was about to say a bird nest.
Well, that's exactly what I do. I make a little bird nest looking thing. Well, I would, but it takes a little while, and I know y'all want to hear about some of the other things I have. Let's see, somebody had a question. Let's see. The knife. Actually, you're right. A knife is a very, very important tool that the long hunters would have had. Believe it or not, yes, this one is a little sharp. No, you don't throw your weapons away.
No, throw at the animal.
No, you wouldn't want to throw your weapons at the animals, because if you miss, now you're defensive. You don't throw your weapons away. No, you're right. This knife, you'd use it to skin the animal. You'd use it to kill an animal. Your flintlock rifle over here, you get one shot. You think that's good against a bear that's coming after you?
No.
It's enough to, if you're lucky, it's enough to start killing him, but he's still going to get you. Guess what? This is your secondary weapon. So, so you can kill that bear. Or do you want to, if you're trying to keep the Indians from knowing you're there, do you want to shoot? If you can just stab something? Absolutely right. You would want to stab it. So, guess what else I have in my bag? I have everything I need that makes it possible for me to live out here. Did you say a steak? Oh man, I wish there was a steak in here. Nice 10-ounce steak. No. My bag would be kind of soggy though. However, I have everything in here that makes it possible for me to live out here, so I call this my possibles bag. Can y'all say that?
Possible.
That's right. It's my really cool bag. Do you have a question? Absolutely. I'm going to get to that.
That's what I was trying to ask.
Okay, I will get to that. So what happens if I tear my clothes? Fix them. That's right. I have to fix them. Guess what I have right here?
Sewing kit.
A sewing kit. That's absolutely right.
You could use this to burn hacks.
Absolutely. You have to fix your clothes by sewing. Everybody take a step back. There you go. Good job. All right. Yes, they got to have a sewing kit, so these guys have to know how to sew. Who knows how to sew?
Oh, I Actually, I did.
Well, there you go. Well, now y'all have something to learn. Learn how to sew, so you can fix something in your clothes. If you're ever lost in the woods, you need. Never mind. If you're lost in the woods, hug a tree. That way somebody can find you. It's hard to find a moving target. Okay, so everything else I have in my bag here right now, believe it or not, it makes it possible to fire my gun. Which these guys would have used on large animals such as deer and buffalo. Would you believe that there was buffalo right here in Tennessee? Yes, there was. There was buffalo right here in Tennessee. So, when you load a gun today, what do?
You put the mat.
You know, you got malaria and things like that. They didn't know it came from mosquitoes. They thought it came from bad air. So if you covered your skin with clothing, you couldn't get that bad air through your skin and you wouldn't get sick.
That is true. That is in the history books.
So lots of reasons for it. But anyway, and I tell people too, you know, it was mostly custom and fashion. Most of our ancestors are from Europe. I have a daughter who's living in England right now. It's in the mid 50s over there today. Yeah, so you know they wore long clothes all the time because it's cold over there all the time. Anyway, so this is a material is a mixture of wool and cotton called jean wool. In the Eastern Army around Virginia, their uniforms probably would have been pure wool because they had factories and stuff to make it. South we didn't have those kind of factories. So a lot of it was homespun.
Feel the coat. Feel the coat. I'm gonna let go of it now.
And a lot of times you'll hear the Confederates in the West as referred to as the butternuts. And that's because they used walnut shells to dye their uniforms, a brown, kind of a brownish color.
That's it. How heavy
When
is
we're
that?
going to battle, you have a
Well, here
backpack
goes-
you take to school?
Hey, hang on for a minute. I think the whole batch is coming.
See, we don't have a backpack, so we have a haversack. And this is what we carry all of our stuff in. This is our plate we eat our food off of, our wallet, keep our money in, maybe a fork and a spoon, maybe a pen to write letters home to our girlfriend.
That was in an ink well.
So,
that with you too, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, we carried whatever we needed
Or
to.
pencils, maybe.
Pencil or pencil.
Then we have a canteen. This is where we carry our water or whatever we find to drink in. We have this over here, and that over there, and then we have, you're looking at 10 over there, you see a blanket on the ground. We didn't have sleeping bags, we had blankets. So we roll that blanket up, throw it over our shoulders. So then we have to carry all that stuff, this gun, which is really heavy. You have to march 50 miles.
Bill Rice, come down this way.
Okay, my ancestor was cavalry. Okay, so at the beginning of the war, when the Southern soldier went to war, he didn't have anything. It wasn't like the North, and the North gave them everything. 90% of the Confederate soldiers that fought at the beginning of the war came from farms of 100 acres or less. They didn't have slaves, they had their families. Okay, so to start the war, when they went to war, they had to bring everything from their house. They brought their home, all these were homespun. Okay, they brought their horses if they were going to fight cavalry. Okay, my ancestor was paid for his horse. He had one. Okay, so the cavalry, the Union cavalry had herds of horses. So part of the job of the Confederate cavalry was to steal horses. So we go steal our horses. So cavalry did not fight up front. They fought on the flanks, or they fought into the rear. They go around the armies and come in behind and make all kind of mischief. What they couldn't steal, beg, or borrow, they burned. Because we didn't want the Union to have it, because we wanted to make them work. So we would steal, beg, or borrow, or capture, and then bring it back. So then we would have supplies. So if a Confederate cavalry horse went lame, you stole, you begged, or whatever, or you became infantry, one or two. So you tried to get as many horses as you could keep. Again, cavalry is fighting, is scouting, interdiction, finding out what's going on, messing with the two ends to keep them from flanking us, going behind them and do all kinds of mischief. So they didn't really, at the first they carried the long rifles, but they found that was a pain trying to pull it out and shoot it. So what, about 1860, late 1863 through the rest of the war, they started making a short carbine is what it's called. But the cavalry, most of the time, some of the adults have seen Josie Wales, okay? Josie Wales was, you know, if you take it and put it into a Confederate uniform and put it on a horse, he carried a whole bunch of pistols. So we carried about 4 to 6 pistols depending on your build of your size. You know, the bigger, Josie Wales, he was a big guy, so he was able to carry 6. Me, I would probably just carry 4, which would be 1 here, and 2 here, across another bandana. So that was 20 shots because a cavalryman never carried his pistol on a live black powder charge. Because if you fell off your horse, got knocked off your horse, got shot, and you fell, the hammer being on a live shell might go off and it might shoot you again, so then you got shot twice. So you never did it. So if you carried 4, you had 20 rounds. And then you got the heck out of Dodge, went back and reloaded and fought. Another thing at the beginning of the war, they had swords. This is a CSA cavalry sword, a reproduction of it, okay? So they carried it like this and a scaffold across the horse. Well, they found, again, over time, they didn't really use the swords a lot. They found it works, but then again, this is real long again, okay? So, in about the middle part of the war, what they would do is they would cut it right here and make what they call a saber out of it, the short sword. So, again, the sword was only used if they were fighting usually other cavalrymen or if they got into infantrymen and trying to keep them away from the horses, because cavalrymen was not made to fight a pitched battle. They were hit and run and get the heck out of Dodge. So all they were trying to do was find a way out to make a hole for them to get out. So they would use this, or if they shot all the rounds, they'd use this just to get people out of the way and get the heck out of Dodge, because they were trying to save the horse and them. So, but it says CSA on it. So this was a sword that a lot of them carried. And I carried a pistol that had, and this is an 1859 Navy Colt pistol. This was one of the ones that was used in the Civil War, in the War between the States. It held 6 rounds. Again, they only put 5 in it. It was black powder. So you took the cylinder out, load the cylinder and put it back in, and then you had it set up. And you carried up to 4 of them. So, again, a lot of them wore different hats. If they were in encampment, cavalrymen was always proud of themselves, so they would wear a hat like this. But this is not very good when you're riding a horse, because this would just go take off in the wind. So they would carry a hat like this. Now if you notice, this has a yellow band on it. A yellow band told everybody, I'm cavalry, okay? You had different hats, different colors. Red was artillery, and blue was all infantry. That's how you kind of like knew, you might know who you are, but again, in the war you were in, if you watch Gettysburg, if you watch God and Generals, if you watch Shiloh, if you watch any of the movies, look at the uniforms for the Confederate guys. None two are almost the same, okay? Because we had to get what we want. Gettysburg happened because Lee, which was our commanding general, was looking for shoes for his soldiers, because some of them didn't have soles. Some didn't have shoes. During the Battle of Murfreesboro here at Stones River, a lot of them didn't have shoes. A lot of them didn't have anything. And it was sleeting, snowing, raining, so it was very cold for them.
Talking about the hats too, this is called a slouch hat, and this is what they would have worn at home on the farm. So that's what most of them had in this area, because they didn't have factories to make military caps. Plus, this has actually a lot of advantages over a military kepi. This is called a kepi cap. This has a lot of advantages, like today, keeps the sun off, keeps the rain off. Go by some cornfield, you collect corn in there, or find a chicken house and put your eggs in there. So it's a very utilitarian hat, and it's called the slouch hat. This is what most of them would have had around here. Any other questions anybody might have, real quick? Oh, we talked about the items of the tent over here. This would have been probably a 4-man tent. If they had tents, a lot of them didn't have tents. We were talking about the Battle of Murfreesboro in December. You read the stories, they were just sleeping with blankets, no tents, in sleet and freezing rain. I don't know how any of them survived the weather, much less the battle. But that was a 4-man tent. The blanket in there, you just roll up and carry with you. You had to carry your haversack, your canteen, your rifle, and try marching with that in this kind of heat. I don't know how. Again, I don't know how they did it, because they were tough. Like he said, they grew up on farms. You know, they were working hard in the fields every day, following mules and whatever. So they were tough guys. But it was tough for them. One thing I want to kind of follow up what he said was, you know, why were they fighting? Why did these guys fight for 4 years? Tennessee, most people don't know this, Tennessee voted against secession when Lincoln was elected president. Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, all voted not to secede. What changed their mind? What changed their mind was Lincoln demanded 50,000 troops from every state to invade the Confederacy. All Tennessee, North Carolina said, no, we're not going to give you any soldiers to invade the South. They have the right to secede. You know, you do not have congressional approval for a war. It's unconstitutional. So we're going to join them rather than join you. So that's why Tennessee changed their vote against secession to overwhelmingly for secession. So that's, you know, most people say, oh, they all just seceded for slavery. That's not true. It was more for states' rights, their ability, they thought they had the right to govern themselves. They thought they had the right to secede. And that's what they were fighting for, was their constitutional right to self-government.
Yes.
Did you have a spear gun?
Do I have a what?
Did you guys have a spear gun?
Spear guns? I don't think spear guns were around 175 years ago.
We just put the bayonet on the end of it like this.
Or
and use that like a spear.
Or like, again, our brethrens in Texas. Who do we have in Texas? Anybody know what this knife was called? Okay, this is a Bowie knife. Who made Bowie knives?
Jim Bowie.
Jim Bowie. No, Jim Bowie. Well, he had one at the Battle of the Alamo. Okay, for Texas. So our brothers, a lot of them carried this knife because this is a big utility knife. It could be used to chop wood, cut meat, cut their food up. Also for if you were in the cavalry, you were, you know, hiding and stealing and trying to get, you know, things. So you might get a picket with this, or cut traces on horses off the wagons. Get the horses to run off, because then they couldn't move their wagons. Our job in cavalry was to interdict supplies. So we either beg, borrow, steal, or burn. So this was used real quick. You could cut the braces off. If the horses were hooked to the wagon, you cut the braces, the horse would go away, and we'd take the horses. Another thing that the cavalry do is to get more horses, because the Union cavalry had herds of horses. The Confederate cavalry, they had one probably, or maybe two at the most, if they happened to come from a farm that had 2 horses.
What's your question, sir? Yes, they would shoot at the horses that dismounted. All the horses got killed. Yes, sir. Question?
Done. You have a question?
The Confederate side? You don't know. You can't really, we can't really do history. Probably, a lot of people say what would have happened if the war hadn't even started. What would have happened? Tennessee would have stayed in the Union. If we hadn't started the war, Tennessee never would have left the Union. We'd still be in the United States. The further south states probably wouldn't have survived as a country because they didn't have the industry. They didn't have all they had cotton. They didn't have the industry. Once they survived, probably would have been united eventually anyway. was 150 years ago. Not quite that old.
Well, we're reenactors of that particular thing, 100 thing. Now, if you're asking a question, did some of us fight? Yes. Some of us are veterans. All of us are veterans. Most of us. So one way or another, yes, I did fight in the Iraqi War.
But not this one.
Not in this war. My ancestor, my great-great-grandfather. My great-grandfather was a private. He fought with the 12th Alabama Cavalry Regiment. He fought in 4 different states. He fought with Wheeler, Peters. He fought at the Battle of Chickamauga. He was wounded, sent home in late 1864, and was paroled in Decatur, Alabama. Went back to Leona, Tennessee, became a preacher, and had 13 kids, and I raised my hand. Because that's where the food chain comes down to me. I know where he is buried. So,
how old are you guys? 10, 11?
and who was it? You? Yes.
My great-great uncle was 16 when he joined the Army.
Us?
I have a picture of him. He's not much taller than this gun. And he lived for 3 years. He fought
BBSB?
in all the major battles in Tennessee.
What did it mean?
Finally, the family story is outside
I've never heard that one.
Georgia. One day he said, "I'm tired of dodging Yankee bullets," and just stood up and got shot when he was 19 years old.
I don't know.
Question for you. What do the flags stand for?
Those are corps flags. So you have regiments and companies and corps.
Okay.
So in battle, of course, you lined up by corps. And to know where your corps was supposed to be going, you followed the flag. And especially in the heat of a battle, there's a lot of. If any of you have been to a reenactment, go to a big reenactment sometime like Shiloh or one of those. There's so much smoke and confusion. I mean, it's easy to get lost. Where's the rest of my guys? What's the rest of my company? You know, and you look for the flag. Follow that flag. Yeah, they would set up just wooden targets or whatever.
They figure out what their rifles could shoot at to find out if the barrel, you know, again, you know, you're fighting in infantry. If you dropped your rifle, things could happen to the rifle. So if they got encampment for 3 or 4 days and they knew that the rifle might be a thing, they might set up a target at 100 yards and see where the bullet would go.
Anybody know how many people died in the Civil War, or War between the states, as we call it?
About 1,300.
How many?
About 1,300.
Anybody else want to guess? A little bit more than that.
Worth $10. Anybody can answer.
Here, what?
About 2,500.
Anybody else want to guess?
Oh, 3,500.
We had even more than that died in one battle.
Yes.
2017.
How many?
2017.
Another one, please.
Well, okay. Estimates range from 500 to 600,000. 500 to 600,000.
Both sides.
565,000.
That's pretty close. Okay, so that's what the estimates are for the number of people. And the civilian deaths were, not even, nobody has the idea how many civilians were killed, died from hunger, starvation, disease, after the armies came through and left them with nothing to eat. So it's way on up there. Also, we'll talk about the guns a little bit. That many people died. Why so many deaths in this war? Well, before the Civil War, guns were, most of the military guns anyway, were not rifles. They were smoothbore muskets, which meant there's no rifling in it, and they are accurate from maybe from here to that tree there. You know, if you're lucky, you could hit something that far away. This gun, I could shoot somebody down there on the highway. I mean, this is accurate for several hundred yards, but they didn't change their tactics. You know, they still lined up in a line and marched right into that gunfire. Also, not only the rifles, but they had rifled cannons that were shooting a mile or more. They had, and then by the, everybody been to the battle site at Beech Grove? You know what the significance of that battle is? That's the first battle in the war where they used repeating rifles. The Union soldiers, the commanding officer of the Union soldiers actually paid his own money to buy his men Spencer rifles that could shoot 7 rounds without reloading. That's a big advantage over this one, which I can shoot maybe 3 times a minute. They can shoot 7 times in about 10 seconds. So big advantage. The funny thing was the military wouldn't buy them for the soldiers because they waste too much ammunition. But it was such a huge advantage. That's the reason they won that battle, probably, because they outgunned the Confederates. The Confederates said they could load on Sunday and shoot for Saturday. So for this one, this is a rifle musket, and to fire this, let me take this off here. Step out of the way here. There we go. All right. So to fire this gun, you have to put a cartridge out. We didn't have bullets like you have now. You have a paper cartridge with gunpowder in it, and then this is the bullet that went in the end of the cartridge. Not that quick. So you have to get the bullet out first. This is a cartridge pouch. Nope. That's a big.
That's a 58 caliber rifle bullet.
If that hits the bone, it's going to shatter it. That's why they had so many amputations in the war.
That's a rifle bullet.
It came wrapped up in a piece of paper with gunpowder in it.
You're nervous?
So the first requirement for an infantryman was to have 2 front teeth. The reason for that is because he had to tear the cartridge open to get the powder out.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna cover it with my
Then
ears.
you have to pour the powder down in the gun.
Is this gonna be hard and loud?
Yeah, it's pretty loud. It's not coming out here good.
Are you okay?
You put the bullet in,
Let's see.
then get the ramrod out, and pack it down. You gotta do this while people are shooting at you now.
Same thing. I'm doing that with this too, but I usually did this back after I fought. That's why I carried 4 pistols. You just can't reload that quick on a horse.
All right. Then we're still not ready. We got to get a cap out. We got a little what's called a percussion cap. It's like kind of like you go on a cap gun.
I shot a rifle.
You know, cap guns. You don't have to remember cap guns. They don't have those anymore.
I shot a rifle here.
You
Put
did?
that on there.
Cool.
All right. You ready?
I did.
All right.
Hang on, kids.
Y'all holler out the commands now. Ready, aim.
Now you gotta say ready, aim, fire. Okay. Ready.
Aim, fire. Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Now that was just black powder. That's all. It's just a blank round. We're not shooting bullets out here. We don't have any Yankees out there. Okay. We don't have Yankees we're shooting at. Huh?
Any questions?
Man, don't say that.
Any questions, anybody?
We do not. We don't. Okay. We do. Well, I don't have any bullets.
That's a usual.
I do not have any bullets with me.
Any question?
What?
Alright, you guys ready to go somewhere else?
That's his son.
Here, kids. Come on. Let me let y'all up there.
Y'all want to see how watercolor paint is made from the get-go, from the very beginning? Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. I'll make it out of rocks. And I find these rocks here in Tennessee. These rocks are from over on the Tennessee River, which is about 70 miles from here. And they've got a yellow color to them, and that's because there's iron in these rocks. There's a lot of iron. So what I do is I crush these rocks up in a mortar and pestle. So this is a mortar and pestle, and it's made out of cast iron, so it's really tough. I beat it up in there until I get some dust started in the bottom. See all that dust in there? So I take that and dump it into a sieve, and a sieve has just got a screen wire in the bottom of it. See the screen in there? And when I shake it, the big rocks stay on top of the screen, and everything that's tiny falls through the screen, so I get dust. And I take that dust and I put it into another mortar and pestle, and I fine grind it. I grind it until it's about like flour that you'd make bread or biscuits out of. Now, when I've got that done, I take that material and I dump it on top of this granite rock here. It's just a piece of granite that's got a smooth surface on it. And I use this little tool called a mullet. It's just a little piece of glass that's flat on one side. And I grind that paint pigment down until it's really, really fine. It's just about like, I'm going to put some more in there.
It's just about like talc powder. Really, really fine. Look pretty that yellow gets when it gets wet.
It's like gold.
Now, I'm getting somewhere. Now I've got a really fine mixture of water. Got water and I've got paint together. Now, it's not paint yet because I don't have a glue and I need a kind of a glue to hold that stuff to the paper. If I don't, it'll fall off the paper.
Is this place 15?
I don't know. Now, to make it stick to the paper, I have to use a thing called gum arabic. Gum arabic is it's just a tree gum that's been dissolved in water, and I make sort of a syrup out of it. So I put a few drops of that in there, and I mix that together. Now I've got my glue in there. I've got my gum arabic in there. Now at that point, Now at that point, I can take my paintbrush, and I've got real watercolor paint.
I'll paint.
There you go.
Paint. I want to paint.
There's some brushes.
Ooh. Hey, let me in.
Here's some paper.
Hold on, Ellie. Oh, I don't get
There's some paper.
I don't get some paper. My grandma can knit and sew, but she can't do crochet. My aunt can do crochet.
Yeah, I know. Some of them can do it really good. I wish I could.
Is it hard?
No?
Is it hard? It's something you have to learn how to
Not
do.
hard once you learn how. Just a chain stitch is easy. Just what I do is easy. You know, I guess when you got change threads and do different colors and different things be hard, but I didn't make any of this. That lady over there did, so.
This is how they would decorate their homes with fancy things.
College age kids. Can you imagine? They used to have all this in the old houses. And can you imagine when they had cold heat and all that kind of stuff? They probably had to wash it all the time to keep it clean, and then they would starch it to make it stand up.
Oh, okay.
It's a loom. I think that's the one called Pop Goes a Weasel. It goes around and around. It gets a certain spot, it'll pop. That's when they got Pop Goes a Weasel.
Oh, well, we
These are just looms. I used to know
the spinning wheel.
Yeah, spinning wheel.
There was
You have to have a spinning wheel too.
And I always liked it. So we decided we were going to just get together once a week.
You can really put laying on it.
It's just for decoration.
Yeah, that was just a decoration to set on a table or something.
Let's see, they'd also make quilts. They taught me.
You go see the pigs. Say hi to them for me. Say okay.
We already seen those.
You already saw them. What were your favorite animals that you guys saw?
Piglets.
The piglets. They're my favorite too.
I don't see the pigs. The cows do.
Thank you. That's what cows do. Thank you.
Everybody's got to use this.
You see, were you there when I said this is called a rolag? No. So you take the wool from the sheep and you have to comb it so it's kind of all in the same direction and nice and smooth. You can use this with cotton too, but we have the wool today. And so what you do is you take your, what did I call it? A rolag. And then you'll put it here, and the thread collects here. This string is separate. This kind of helps work as the motor. And so what you do then, that breeze feels good, is you spin. And your foot keeps the engine running, and your hands kind of tease this out. See how lumpy that is? We don't want that. That's really terrible.
So how do you get the lump out?
So if you're really good, you just don't make the lumps. So you see how this is thinner? That's how you want it to be. But when I start a new one, it's always real lumpy. And it just goes like this. This is what y'all would do all day long. Fortunately, we have a shady spot here, right?
Oh, Sam, look under that. Maybe. I don't know. I don't care.
It's just it's just open air under the house.
Why do you think they did that?
supposed to be taller.
Maybe. If the house is right on the ground, you can get all kinds of troubles. What happens when it rains really hard here in Tennessee? It can flood, right? Another thing that happens is if it's right on the ground, you can get snakes and mice climbing in. This helps keep pests out.
And for road water, it just comes through.
Yeah,
Yep.
the water would just pass on underneath.
Yep, you wouldn't have big dirty floors, muddy floors.
What's that?
So these are called cards. They look like dog brushes, right? And so what you need to do is when you get the wool, this is like this is washed after it's been sheared or cut off the sheep, and you just have to comb it out. And once it's combed out, it'll kind of fluff up like this, and this is the roll lag, and this is what you'll spin with. Yeah, I'll let you pass this around, and you'll feel that oil that keeps your hands moisturized. My hands are gonna be so soft at the end of today.
So what kind of oil is it that's on there?
It's from the animal.
I don't know. I know for sure it's not merino wool. Because everybody asks if that's lanolin. Yeah, that's the oil. But I don't know exactly what kind of sheep this is from.
It's definitely from a white sheep.
Does it depend?
It is. And if you wanted to dye your clothes, how would you get dye?
You would get like berries.
Not food coloring. You could use berries, you could use flowers,
Leaves.
but you'd have to use naturally occurring colors because you couldn't go to the store and buy food coloring. They didn't have it.
Could you get black wool?
Yes, you could.
Is it just black?
You could, yes. Or you can dye it. It was easy to dye clothes black back then too.
But how would you dye it with black?
That I don't know, but I know they could.
Does it matter what kind of sheep you got? Depends on what kind of oil you use on it?
Well, it depends on what kind of what you use on it.
The oil that you use on it?
So the oil is naturally occurring. The sheep just produce it. It's in there. So it doesn't matter. It's going to be lanolin from any kind of sheep. But if you have like merino sheep, like if you bought something that's a merino wool sweater or something, that's kind of the best. Most people probably wouldn't have been making their clothes out of that. It would have been a little bit itchier.
Gotcha.
Thanks, y'all.
How do you get it on there?
On here?
Yeah.
So it pulls through here and it just twirls it.
The girls were asking, now that we have string, how do we actually make the clothes?
Hey.
So to make the fabric, there's a tool. Can we watch our feet? Sorry. There's a tool called a loom, and that's essentially you have to weave it all together. And that's a whole other demonstration. It's a big kind of clunky thing.
On the other side of there's one in that building.
Oh, there
around
is?
the front.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
So how do you take this and turn it into this? Can you look at your shirt and see how there's like little bitty tiny squares? And it looks like it's crisscrossed.
So your
on
shirts
top
are
of each other?
woven.
Mm-hmm.
So they take string.
And so when
make
you
the
see
fabric.
the loom, then that's what you get when you take this and you start weaving it all together. But you'll see she doesn't have lumps
The
like I do.
thinner the threads, the finer the fabric.
Yes.
Like your shirt.
You want to go find
So
that?
mine would have been discount clothes here.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, y'all. Thanks for stopping by.
This is actually like the sweater shirt.
Oh, so now if you lose your piece,
Yeah, so what you do, and we have this little tool where you can pull it
look at
through.
that. Hey, don't climb the tree. Zane, tie your shoes.
Just like this.
So then you just join it together.
Mm-hmm.
This just gets in.
Got to hook it. Uh-oh. Slight malfunction. There. So you have to hook it here, and that's how it stays on the spool. And it knows where to go. And you just bring it back.
Is this your spinning wheel or is it the?
So this, I work at the Agricultural Museum in Nashville, and this belongs to the museum. So, yes. The woman who trained me on this, though, she spins full time. Like, that's her job.
Wow.
And so, I mean, you can buy them still and keep doing this. Fire,
I get the metal hot enough that I can shake it.
fire, and metal.
That's really cool. I want to see him finish this.
And I make it hotter by turning a crank. I'm actually making a fan of blowing air in it. I could hook a vacuum cleaner up to it.
But they didn't have them back
They
then.
didn't have them, no, but I could do that. But some of them used to have a little wheel on the side of it, and you had a little handle. And you could turn that handle, and it would make the fan turn.
Down and it flows air into it. Or you like had two handles.
Yeah, but what is it called? Do you know what's it called? No.
No, did you know that money is black? He doesn't have wine. Yeah, wine doesn't do it. No, it doesn't spoil. Yeah, but
So what are you making there?
I'm going to make a hook, what's called a drive-in or a nail-in hook.
Gotcha.
Not getting hot enough in the right place.
Gotcha.
But don't get it white hot.
Now if I get it white hot, it can melt. You're right. If I want to weld two pieces of metal together, I can get it white hot. But if I get it white hot and I don't want to do that, I can actually melt the metal. Which that would ruin what I'm doing, right?
Did you make that?
Did I make what?
That one thing you just now. No, wait. Sing.
This?
Yeah, that.
Yes. This is called a rake or a coal rake, and I use that to pull the coal in to the center of the fire, okay? Now I got it.
Made a little crack.
Now I'm going to put a point on the end of it and make it where I can drive it in like a nail.
What would they use that for? To hang something from? To hang, right.
Don't have to have nails or screws.
Right.
And if I need to take it out, just wiggle it and move it.
Gotcha.
I've got these all over the farm, hanging my horse tack on, hanging rope, hitching cords, whatever.
You always need a hook.
I always need a hook.
Did you make those stakes in the ground?
I sure did.
Guys, it's fire.
Yep, I have fire today. It's not a very good day for fire because it's hot. You guys have been here before, haven't you? No, you have a twin?
Yes.
That's what it is. I saw your twin earlier.
The one where you can tell us apart is by.
Like what? Oh, yes. I tell you what I could do. I could get you some glass. Are you as smart as your brother?
How do you do it?
I'm getting it hot and I'm going to make a point on the end of it.
Because you go to Walmart and get an actual gun that shoots. Yeah, my mom won't let me have one that shoots. Yeah, my mom won't let me have it.
Come around this way, Landon. Boys, come around this way so y'all can see.
I'm going to make what's called a nail in or a drive-in hook. I'm going to make a nail on this end. I'm going to make a nail that's a square nail because square nails will hold longer than round nails. Will hold better.
Is that one a square nail?
That was a square nail. I'll make one almost just like that. I made that out of round. I also can make them out of square metal. So I'm making this one out of square.
Can you heat it up?
I'm heating it up right now.
So, how long does it take to originally like get to bend it down to the hook?
Well, if I get my fire good and hot and I didn't have to talk all the time, I could do it pretty quick. When I have to stop and talk, I can't work as fast. It's also hard for me to see the color of my metal out here in the sun. Normally blacksmith shops didn't have any windows. It's nice and dark, so I can see the color of the metal, know when to bring it in and out. With the sun shining in, I can't see it very good. It takes me longer to figure out what I'm doing.
But when you have shade, you can see it better.
When you have what?
When you have shade, you can see it
You're
better.
right, but right now I made a mistake this morning. I thought when I set up I'd be in the shade all day, but what happened? There's a little hole up there. And all that sun's right coming down on top of it. It'll be gone in a little bit.
I'm gonna take Yeah, the first one was really hard. Until right now it's fine.
So what I just did, I just made that square. I'm going to clean it up a little bit so it'll make a nail that I can drive into the wood.
When you need to start a fire,
Do what?
can you do it? How long do you need to start a fire with that?
It takes me about 20 minutes to get the fire ready.
Can you do it to swords and stuff like that?
Yeah, I can make swords. Now I'm going to bend it over.
I like blacksmith.
You do? Why?
Yeah,
It's cool. It's nice and dirty.
think that's something next
So what is the basic tools that you normally use a lot?
Well, all you need is something hard to beat on. Anvil's the best. You can use a piece of railroad track, a big old piece of sledgehammer, something to beat, just so you've got a good solid piece to beat on.
Hammer.
Any kind of a hammer. You can actually use vice grips, okay, to hold the metal with. You don't have to be fancy. Most blacksmiths I made my own tongs. You make a lot of your own tools.
Yeah.
Look, Daddy, it's
Oh wow, look at look at that. If you hit it too hard, can you break it?
No, you can break it when it's cold.
Oh, okay.
You have to worry about me if it's hot. You're probably not going to.
Okay.
If it gets too cold though, you can crack it or break it.
Okay.
As long as it's hot, you're pretty good shape.
Okay.
And that's it. Okay. So, if, like I say, you see what I did with that one? I could do, if I needed another hook to do it, and I would just put it in here and now I've got a hook. I could also this other
Maybe
way.
put the hammer on the
Yeah, one's them over. Look, that one. I didn't nail that one. That's a hard piece of oak right there. Anyway. You can put those on your deck somewhere on a post and hang all kinds of stuff. Don't need a screw or a nail.
They're both dairy cattle, and they're 6 months old, so they're heifers, and they're both female. This one is for show, so she goes around and shows it at different places. And what else is there? They're Holstein calves.
What kind of cow is it?
She's a
Holstein. Okay.
but
My
they're
fault.
dairy cattle.
Yeah, dairy.
Right.
So that's basically it.
Gotcha. Okay. So you bring the bucket to milk the cow?
Actually, they're not old enough to mix milk yet.
I'm just kidding.
Hi everybody, we're at Heritage Days here at Sam Davis home, and we have here 2 hens and 1 rooster, and they're kind of getting hot. See how they're panting? So they get a little hot. And I also brought today a water test demonstration on how you can tell a good egg from a bad egg. This is really a pretend egg, because if you've ever smelled a bad egg, you know why I don't want to bring a real one and accidentally drop it and break it open. But if you're not sure if your eggs are still good or not, put them in a bowl and your bad eggs will float. Because as an egg ages and it gets bad, it creates a gas, and the gas rises, and that's what causes your eggs to float. So your good eggs will always stay at the bottom, and that's how you know. So if you've ever smelled a bad egg, you don't want to wait till you break that bad boy open in your house to find out if he's good or bad.
That's
So,
how you find out if
that's how you
good.
find out if they're good or bad.
Floats.
If it floats, it's bad. Break one open and you see why you don't want to do that. You want to do the water test.
Eggs can last a pretty good while.
In your fridge, I've had them last up to about 3 months in the fridge.
Gotcha. And what kind of chickens are there?
We have these 2 red ones are called Rhode Island Reds, and this black one is called a black sex-link.
Okay.
And both of these lay brown eggs, and they're very good, especially the black sex-links. They're very good egg layers, especially in the wintertime.
Okay.
And a lot of people think that they slow down egg production because of the cold. It is not the cold. It is the amount of daylight hours that will trigger them to slow down. Shorter the daylight hours, the less they get off cycle and slow down.
So,
everything wants to rest in the wintertime, including hens.
right. So the older the chicken get, does it mean it lays less eggs, or?
A hen is the most productive on egg laying in their first 2 years of life. And then as they age, that cycle kind of gets interrupted. And so I've had some where I know, because I've had some white ones, where I might have 5 white hens and I'll get 5 white eggs every day until they start getting older. And then maybe I get a white egg every other day, and that type of thing. So it just depends. Stress can also interrupt that egg laying cycle. If something stresses them out really bad or something like that. So, and most of the time, because we live on a farm, the oldest I've ever had a hen to live and just die of natural causes has been around 4 or 5 years of age. So.
Gotcha.
You do. That's where your big roast chickens come from.
Nah.
Unless you raise out capons or something.
Capons,
like that. They're a large, heavy-breasted breed of chicken, and they're half again as heavy as a laying chicken. What
But these are both the laying breeds, not the new
Gotcha.
breeds.
So how many times a day do you feed them?
We'll fill their feeder bins up once in the morning, and that's it. Because they also have a huge. Everybody says, are they free range? I says until they hit the fence, because I'm not coming home to chicken on my back porch. But they have a good, I don't know, 3 to 5 acres of fenced-in pasture area. And so I feed them some layer pellets from the co-op that has protein in it, because the hen needs protein to produce the egg. They also need protein to produce their feathers. And so we supplement with their feed, but then they can eat all the bugs and the grass and everything. And they love vegetables. They love vegetables.
Right.
So,
Chickens will eat anything.
they eat just about anything, yeah.
Right,
I know a lot of people will feed them table scraps, like you're feeding hogs. You know, you can do that too. Herbs are good for them. Certain herbs are good for them. Oatmeal, they love oatmeal.
Oh, they do?
All of that. Oh yeah, you just throw them out some oats, uncooked oats, they love oatmeal.
Gotcha. All right.
But yeah, they'll eat just about anything.
So how you
Yeah.
so how you tell the difference between a rooster and a hen there?
Okay, rooster, depending on the breed, like on a Rhode Island Red, your rooster's going to be much bigger. He's got these pretty tail feathers where the hen does not. And the red thing on top of their heads, on both hens and roosters have, it's called a comb. And so his comb is much bigger. And the red things under their chin is called wattles. And his wattles are much, much bigger than the hens. And then, of course, when they hit a certain age, you'll know it when they start crowing. And, so that's how you kind of tell.
Okay.
Yeah, but he takes his job protecting his girls very seriously. And roosters are actually gentlemen. They're quite the gentlemen. I've seen them, they'll find something good to eat, and they'll produce a certain pitch of call, and the hens will come running, and then he just steps back, and they will eat. And he's always watching for the predators.
Okay.
All the time they're eating. He'll be watching. He never really eats. Chivalry is not dead when it comes to roosters. Such a gentleman.
It's just southern roosters, right?
I don't know about them northern roosters. Yeah, them southern roosters, yeah, they're quite the gentlemen.
Gotcha.
But I have seen other breeds like Bantams where the rooster is the same size as the hen. So it depends on the breed. But most of them will have tail feathers. A lot of them will grow. And the spurs on their feet that come out sticking out, it's like big giant toenails. Them bad boys hurt. So
right.
And they use
They
them.
fight. That's what they fight with.
That's
Those
yeah.
spurs. They can actually cut the skin on your arm.
Yeah.
Or legs or whatever.
Yeah, they don't
can
feel
get
good.
to.
But they're designed for defense.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what they're for. Yeah. They're designed for defense.
So you don't have no problems when you go in there and the hen and try to grab the eggs?
Well, not when I get the eggs. Now, he wasn't happy this morning because I got the hens first, and he was looking like he was not happy with me. And so that's when I turned around and grabbed him. And like, no, we're not doing this today. But that's his job, you know.
Right.
When his ladies start making that certain noise they make when they're in distress and threatened, then he comes running. He comes running. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome.
So let's come over here and squirt water. Come squirt water? Okay. So let's squirt some water and be like raindrops. Okay? Pick up a water bottle. And if y'all want to come over here too, so pick up a rain and squirt 30 times. Okay?
I really want waffles so zooey though.
Squirt. You'll pick up a bottle and squirt 30 times onto the tarp for me.
Okay. Pick up a bottle. What is this gonna do?
Well, you tell me. I want you to be an observer. Tell me what you notice.
It's pretty. Dad.
30 times. While you watch. So what did you notice?
My hand hurts.
Okay. And where did your water droplets fall?
Mostly there.
Okay, so you squirted into the lake. Okay.
Oh, is there
What happens if you squirt on the hillside?
It'll go down. It'll go down because of the laws of physics.
What's pulling it down?
Gravity.
Very good. So gravity is at work. All right. And you're welcome. If this is a model of the earth, each one of those puddles is a watershed. A watershed is at the bottom of a basin where all the water drains to. Now let's go look at the map. You've got dirty hands too. All of them have a big time.
Yes.
Yep, that's why I was washing my hands.
You gotta get your hands ready. Have a good time.
Absolutely. If you would sign your group in, that would be so cool. So on this map, where is the big puddle? Where is the big puddle for this watershed?
No, it's us. No.
Well, think. What represents water on a map?
Okay, that's.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't look at maps.
What color's water?
Blue.
Well, there you go.
You find a big puddle? There you go. That's using your deductive reasoning. Very good. Okay.
These, because
Come here. You actually did get most of it off. Come here.
So if this is the puddle, and all of the rain in this white area drains to the big puddle or the lake, which way is it draining? Okay, this way. Now, can you give me the cardinal directions from the map? North, east, south, west. Never eat soggy waffles. Which way does the water flow?
I didn't say never eat soggy waffles.
Okay, so which way is it flowing? If you land down here and you have to get to the lake, which way are you having to travel?
Northwest.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. Yes, so it flows through the northwest. And if you were a raindrop and you fell in the yellow area, you're going to flow a different direction because right around here are ridges. That's what separates those. It's a hill, so it separates those puddles. It keeps one from another. So that's what this is. Everything here drains this way. So that's the bottom of the basin.
That's cool.
Now,
What does this teach us?
it teaches you about
Gravity?
stormwater and gravity. Good.
Let's start here.
Now, what happens if you've left a whole bunch of stuff on the surface of your earth, like litter, and it rains really, really hard? Which way does the water flow?
So the trash is going to get carried with it.
Yes. See what a thinker you are? Yeah.
And then the water's going to get polluted.
Yes. And where do we get our drinking water?
The ocean, stream,
Not the
lakes,
ocean, not here.
lakes, rivers.
Right here. We pull our drinking water from here. So what you do and what you do makes a difference as to the value of your drinking water quality.
Wow.
So everything you do has an impact. Now, the Sam Davis family couldn't pull water from their creek because upstream there was a pig farm. Would you want to drink water after the water flowed through a pig farm?
No.
No.
It has mud and poop and stuff.
Absolutely. So they would take rain barrels and they would go to a spring, and then later they developed something on the roof. Look over there on top of the roof.
Dewdrops.
Chimney.
There's a chimney, and what else is up there? What do you mean? So they harvested the rainwater. So the rain hit the roof,
15 minutes.
flowed into the gutter, and then flowed vertically down into the ground, and they had a big tank there. So that is not a well pump. That is a pump to a cistern or a big tank under the ground. So around in this area, there aren't too many wells because we have the karst topography and limestone. So the water just trickles on down and never collects. We don't have big groundwater pools. So that's for a cistern. And what happened, gentlemen, when it didn't rain? They had no water. So do you think they were very conservative with their water all the time? Meaning they didn't waste it? Absolutely. So when you let water run down the tap or down into the drain, technically we don't get that back because it goes to be processed and then back into the river. We don't get that back again until it rains again. And they've collected more rainwater in the rivers and they pull the water out. So don't waste your water here either. Good. You'll be fine. Thank you. All right, so I have some pencils, if you gentlemen would like pencils.
I love pencils. I need them. I already had one.
Thank you.
I need pencils for school. I already have one. I found it. I already have one. I lost it.
Okay, you don't want another one? You want? Okay, does anybody want an activity booklet?
You
got like 15 minutes.
Yes, you may go.